All right, let's talk wound dressings. I have a big basket of tricks that I brought with me. Well, that box, and then everything else that I have here on the floor. With our materials management gone, we don't just go down and grab whatever we want. We have to order stuff. And for the longest time, we've been using the same type of standard dressings. There are some other dressings that are pretty awesome that we can order if we need to. I thought I would show them to you today. First one is the Keramax Care Dressing. So the best way to help heal a wound is to use compression. If a wound is constantly draining, it's just not going to heal. If compression cannot be used, these Keramax dressings will absorb a ton of fluid and stay dry. The first time I saw this, I couldn't believe it. So this is an example of one. And you know, it's a dressing that could go on a leg wound or whatever. And I have my sweet tea with me. And if I go ahead and just pour some on. Now this absorbs pretty fast, but if this was an actual wound, well, the pace of the fluid coming out would be a heck of a lot slower. But if I go ahead and just drench this thing, God, I feel like I'm on a diaper commercial right now. Oh, I just spilled. Oh well. All right, this is gonna do its thing. We'll kind of let it soak in all directions, okay? And I'm gonna come back to this in a minute. Let's just let that be. The Keramax dressing will soak up fluid and then keep the wound itself dry. And that's very important because if you have a wet wound that's constantly macerated, it's not gonna heal very well. So that's where these dressings come in handy. There's also the Carousel AG. So with any silver dressing, you put it on the wound and it creates this biofilm barrier where bacteria won't build up in the dressing. Now, this does not mean that bacteria won't build up in the wound. It just means that it's probably going to be slowed down because of the action of the dressing. But what's really cool about this is that this dressing will gel up, okay, and then it'll actually dissolve and absorb into the wound. And what that does is it increases the efficiency of the silver. So instead of having regular silver, this is like silver times 3 into the wound. Unlike the Aguacel, this does not have the ridges in it. This is actually pretty flat, so I think it's gonna do a better job of filling in dead space than our Aguacel would do. Of course, we can't forget about the Promegran. This is something that we have been seeing not so much of until recently, but the idea behind it is that this is collagen, okay? Collagen is from, well, basically sheets of a cowhide, and it really stimulates granulation tissue to form. Granulation tissue is essential to getting to epithelialization. So the idea behind this, it feels like a freeze-dried sheet. This goes onto a wound. This gets wet. This actually dissolves into the wound, and then it stimulates that granulation tissue production. Could cause hypergranulation tissue. If that's the case, then we just kind of have to back off. But it feels really cool. These are $6 a dressing. Science is not cheap, but I think it's pretty cool. Okay, back to the Keramax. So you can barely see that this thing is like, you know, wet at one time, but I'm feeling it. It is completely dry. This is dry. I can't believe what I'm feeling. These dressings can be kept on for 3 to 5 days, assuming the wound isn't, you know, heavily weeping. This can absorb a lot. It kind of gelled it up inside, almost like a diaper, but it found a way to whisk it away. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then there's the Fibricol Plus. Oh, this is collagen and alginate. So picture your Aguacel mixed with collagen. This is going to hold a lot of fluid in place, but also stimulate the granulation tissue production. Now, we were taught in school that you want to heal a wound as cheaply as possible and as fast as possible. Some of the cheaper dressings are best depending on the wound. Simple wounds can have simple dressings, but when we're looking at big, complex wounds, where we know someone is going to be spending more than 100 days at the care center on skilled care, we want to really speed that up. We don't want infections to form. We don't want that bioburden to get out of control. We just want to heal things. And that's why we have some of these dressings that are a little more expensive and a little bit more complex. Now, wound vacs are also pretty darn cool. Most of those come with a big old piece of foam that we cut into whatever shape we need to place into the wound. And then we have the massive clear sheet that goes over the top, and then the tubing, and then it's kept at 125 millimeters of mercury all the time. But sometimes there are smaller wounds, which means we can use smaller devices. We have used the Snap 125cc a couple times on a couple different people, and the 2 times we used it, they weren't really successful. You know, these are really good on feet wounds, really small wounds, wounds that don't have a whole lot of undermining. When you place a wound vac and there's a lot of undermining, you have to get that foam into the undermining. If you don't, it's going to end up building fluid up, and that fluid could back up actually like into your hips or into any other joint and perpetuate that osteomyelitis or that infection. But these do have its purpose. They do have its use. Just for fun, I want to show you how to apply one because it's not hard. So the Snap kit comes with the big dressing and then the Snap cartridge. It is super duper important, and I'll show you in here. There's a piece that you don't remove. If you remove it, it won't work, but it looks like it should be removed. Let's take this apart. Here we go. At the tip, there's this little plastic piece that looks like it should come off. It doesn't come off. Don't do it. Leave it in place, okay? That actually sticks into here, okay? Snaps into place, and it's ready to suck up all of our wound fluid. In here, we have a nice small covering dressing, okay? And then our foam. So for our purposes, we're gonna pretend that I have a wound somewhere on my leg, okay? And there's no undermining. I'm gonna cut this to size. And we want it so it fits nicely to the wound and it kind of pops up a little bit. There's maybe just it's kind of pushed in. There's some squishiness to it. I'm just gonna pull this down for a minute. There we go. All right, I got this gaping wound on my leg, right? The foam is gonna end up going here. So I'm just gonna remove the pieces. Wound vacs help control the all the fluid that's coming out of a wound. Can really help heal it faster. Okay, I'm gonna pull this back. Now we want to make sure that there's absolutely no way that air can enter. This actually stays in place pretty nice. Now there's one step that I did forget, I will admit, and that is the use of the O-ring putty. This is kind of what we use on ostomies, but the idea is, you know what, I'm just gonna take this off and show you again. Oh God, this is gonna hurt so bad. Oh God, I just waxed myself. Okay. What you do for this is you actually pull it back like this, all right? And then you start kind of working it with your hands to make it into a longer snake. Yes, you kind of have to play with it a bit here. There we go. Once we get it to size, this should be able to go around the wound. And we do want a little bit of space between the barrier and the wound itself, all right? And then the foam can go over that, followed by the dressing. Once that is on, you can kind of push down, make sure we're conforming it. And this should absolutely, positively, without a doubt, keep that pressure lock in place. All right, and here's the snap. I'm gonna hook it up to the base. And then I'm going to push down and snap. All right, and you kind of have to give it a pump or two. Wonderful. And then when you look at the wound itself, the foam is pushed down very, very nicely. It has 125 cc's of, air pump back. These can be changed every 2 to 3 days or until the cartridge is full. You'll know the cartridge is full because this white foam will turn red. And then your snap device will start to move up. Now, once it's in place, you can remove the key and you can hook it to the patient's arm, patient's leg, whatever you want to do, and they're golden. They are set. And then taking it off is as simple as, ow. What'd you think of that, Brutus? What'd you think of that? Okay, I'm gonna put this back. Again, I'm looking at the carousel. It is dry as heck. Really good stuff. And then I think at one time you guys saw the Enluxtra. This is basically the same thing as this. It absorbs a ton of fluid. It stays dry. Actually, I think this absorbs more fluid. At one time, I took somewhere between 500 and 1,000 cc's of water, and I soaked that in Luxtra. Again, these are expensive dressings. We don't use them a whole heck of a lot, but they're there if we need them. Then there's Adaptic Digit. Let's say you have a blister on a toe or on a finger, a wound that you can't heal. It's all good. So this has a nice, somewhat moist Vaseline gauze on here. And if your wound is on your finger, you can literally put this on and then pull it down, and this will protect you. It can be changed every couple days, but that's good for blisters. Don't touch anything that's too hot, everybody. And then you might have seen a couple boxes of this touchless zinc oxide. So zinc is really good for diaper rashes and wounds. It helps facilitate that healing. But instead of caking on these massive layers, why not just like spray a little bit on, make it really simple. Then you don't have to cake on just massive amounts of zinc. So, and these are also very cost effective. I would think we could switch a lot of our residents out for this stuff and stop using the Camoseptine and the Lantiseptic. Let's just go with the big bottle of spray. How about it? And then this should, there we go. Got to work the pump a little bit. Oh, look at that. So instead of caking it on, you can have a nice layer on your hand or your butt, anywhere. So I just want to give you a couple examples of dressing. So calcium alginate. And alginate, I'm going to have fun playing with this. Alginate is, hold on. I think I can rub it in. I'm still figuring this stuff out. So alginate is your Aguacel. It is really good for wet wounds. It absorbs up to 20 times its weight. It's actually a derivative of seaweed. So it's spun into ropes. It's spun into these nice big sheets, and it's very absorbent. Collagen dressings, well, it's literally collagen, Promegran. We don't use these a whole heck of a lot because it's very expensive, but it really, really works. Really good stuff. It is not recommended for wounds that have heavy eschar though. And then it's contradicted in 3rd-degree burns. We do have hydrocolloid dressings, and those are going to be duoderms, those thicker, those dressings retain moisture. They're good for wounds that have already healed or for preventative measures. Definitely don't use them on wounds that are heavily draining or soaking wet because they're not going to do much of anything. But dry wounds, burns, those type of things, hydrocolloid dressings might be good. Hydrogels, we actually don't have hydrogels. Those are a dressing with 90% water in a gel base. Those are definitely cooling and soothing to painful wounds. Definitely use those for burns as well, but probably don't need those. All right, is there anything else I want to show you? I made a huge mess on my floor. This is still dry. It's actually just getting drier. I should pour more of my tea on and see how much I can hold. All right, that'll do it. Thanks for watching.